bit of a halftime break. Dave, you said that you don't have like a
Yeah, we're not, no sponsors, kind of, no
you have a bar.
sponsors,
You have a bar cart to the left or
yeah,
to the right.
no sponsor mini bar in the home office right now. There's a bar cart downstairs that we had to run into because we had to be on drink number 2 during this podcast. The interview had me, consuming a little bit more than I usually would on on the podcast.
Dave, that's a huge milestone. If anything, that's almost worthy of a shotgun to be pulling out the Teak fraternity days.
We'll be celebrating the rest of the day. That is the highlight of my Pride Packer fandom. It probably goes Super Bowl, then talking to Desmond.
Both of those very close. And picking up from where we left off, Dave, I know you brought up that Pats game that stands out to you. I think this is a Super Bowl preview. They even talked about it heading into the game that you have Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. This is what everybody would love as a Super Bowl matchup. Bill Belichick tipped his cap to the Packers. He's like, that was a really good football team we just played. and yeah, that sounds kind of like Bill. No enthusiasm, very monotone. You brought up that Jordy touchdown against Revis at halftime. How about this rookie wide receiver that he's kind of coming along, and he makes a few catches here, a few catches there. And this game, he has a nice long catch along the sidelines. He drops a touchdown later on in the game, but Davante Adams, he made some flashes during that 2014 season, and they couldn't have came at a better time against the New England Patriots, and how much he was able to help convert on third downs, pick up big shot plays. That was one of the things I brought up. Hey, you get a little sense of the light bulb moment going on for Davante Adams in 2014 against the Pats.
On your point on that one, Bill is famous for taking away your best weapons, your best assets, the guy that's going to wreck the game. Jordy, I mean, obviously he had his moments, but clearly the game plan was to take away Jordy. Davante had one-on-one coverage the entire game, and Rodgers showed trust of, I'm just going to go to this young cat and see what he can do, and he was not afraid of the bright lights. So, I mean, obviously the first couple of years, as we'll get into it more down here, were up and down for him, but that game, he showed what he was capable of.
I remember the season opener against the Seahawks, and Rodgers didn't even look the way of Richard Sherman in the half the field. He was on Davante quite a bit. They did that intentionally as a, hey, we'll put our decoy over here because we know this side of the field is going to be a race. One of my favorite Rodgers throws from that Pats game, and then talking about the Eagles and touching upon that Lions NFC North title game. Aaron Rodgers has this pump fake, like a Brett Favre type pump fake where he brings it all the way in.
Yeah.
And then he sees Richard Rodgers that he throws it to him deep. Shout out Richard Rodgers because he had a pretty great it was either 2014 or 2015 where he was tight end one, caught like almost, I think like 9 touchdown passes.
15. It was 15.
15, 9 touchdown passes. Richard Rodgers was a bit of a security blanket, may not have had the speed that we all would have loved, but that pump fake touchdown pass is one of my top 10 favorites of Rodgers. And I remember Clinton Dix had a really great pass breakup on Rob Gronkowski late in the game. And I think that was one of the keys to the wins is because, over the years, we have such trouble with tight ends and holding them in check. Like you think of Andrews from the Ravens, how much he ate up Darnell Savage a couple seasons ago. But remember, and then that Eagles game, this is one of my favorite games of all time. It's an absolutely, demolishing of the Philadelphia Eagles, 53-20 in this one. You think about all the games that we're texting back and forth, and we're on the edge of our seats, stressing out in the second half. Second half of this one, you kick up the lazy boy recliner, and you're all set. Micah Hyde, one of the favorite Packer players of all time, had a punt return. Peppers had his second pick 6 of the season, only had 2 interceptions and went over 100 yards. And I remember a tight end from the Eagles jumping on his back at like the 15-yard line and him dragging him all the way to the end zone. Julius Peppers is probably the most athletic freak I've ever seen in green and gold.
Yeah, I mean, that was a fun run where we were just crushing teams. And yes, you were right about Peppers. Peppers, when he got on a team, even later in his career for the Packers, was just a freak athlete. Like 14, I know Lacey was a little bit banged up, but like he had some monster games too. Like the Bears game that we were talking about earlier, he had that screen pass that just went forever, where he had a convoy in front of him just blocking people. And I think Bakhtiari has even talked about it, saying that's one of his favorite plays ever because all the linemen were in front. Everyone was running downfield for Eddie. Like he's diving into the end zone. Like you had the run game to match up with the pass game, and you had an opportunistic enough defense to match that offensive play style.
Once Eddie started hitting that spin move on you, it's game over. You better pack up and hit the bus. And one thing I made a note of too is that unlike the teams of today, I know you've mentioned it before and we don't take enough precedence on it, is that we dictated the line of scrimmage on both ends. On offense, we could kill 4 minutes of a clock. Like if you gave our offense up one score with like 6 minutes or 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, it's game over. Outside of the NFC Championship game, they were able to milk the clock and beat you up from start to finish. And on defense, an unsung hero is LaTroy Guion, who played defensive tackle. He was such a great run stuffer for that team. And then, like, even the NFC North title game against the Lions, Rodgers goes down with a calf injury, insert Matt Flynn, and they show a video of Aaron Rodgers walking out of the tunnel in the third quarter right after we go 3-and-out, whether that was intentional or not, so the crowd could see him walking out of the tunnel. Gets a standing out, MVP chance for Rodgers. Comes back into the game. That's when they started that pistol formation where it's like he's not fully back in shotgun, but he's a little bit of ways up. He just couldn't take a step
back. He just,
And boy, tell you, this showed that Rodgers, as great as he is, moving around and off schedule, when he's sitting back in the pocket being a true pocket passer, he can pick you apart just as good. I almost think that when Rodgers is forced to be a pocket passer and go through his reads, that he could be a much more consistent quarterback until he catches fire. Yeah. And this is the second that this game before we head into the playoffs, and you bring up some misery for myself, Dave. Thank you very much. This is the second time that Ndamukong Suh stomps on one of our players. He stomped on Evan Dietrich Smith a couple seasons before 2014. And then he steps on Rodgers' calf, whether he said it was too cold and he couldn't feel his toes that day. And then Mike McCarthy still called a quarterback sneak in that game because probably nobody expected it with Rodgers' calf and had limited mobility. But those are some of the things that I remember during that 2014 season. Personally, my favorite team from 2003 up until 2023.
Okay. I don't know, man. Do you want to just say we lost and move on to 15, or what do you want to do?
I at least want to touch upon them, and focus on more, focus on more like the highlights than the lowlights.
I'm saying for the game, the championship game. Who are you with?
Oh, what am I doing for that game?
Yes.
For the NFC, I'll do a quick story for this one. The divisional round against the Cowboys. My dad calls me up like he usually does before the game. I answer the phone and I can hear nothing but just like an uproar in the background. And I hear the broadcaster going on too. As soon as he picks up within seconds, and after you've been to Lambeau, you know where the fuck he's at. Yeah. And my dad was at that divisional round game against the Cowboys. One of his friends had a ticket last second. And I held a little bit of resentment to my dad. I was pissed off because, one, he didn't tell me. And then, two, he was just so excited, but it felt like he was rubbing it in. Decides to call me like moments before kickoff. And he said that the Dez non-catch was the loudest he's ever seen that stadium. Heading into the NFC Championship game, I watched it by myself. I did not talk to my dad, I don't think, for 2 weeks, part of which because of heartbreak in the game. And I remember Devin Hine, I know you remember this too. He was Facebook messaging me with like 6 minutes to go after that Morgan Burnett interception saying, I can't believe we're going back to the Super Bowl. How does it feel, man? That's what I recall as far as where I was at in the present moment back in that day on 2014.
Yeah, so I was at my house. I had my dad's a Bears fan. I had our old fraternity brother Chris Schneider at our house. We played, me and my dad played basketball on Sunday mornings. Needed an extra guy. Chris decided to come in, so we're watching at my house, and everything's going great. I mean, we're kicking field goals. It's not great, but everything's leading up to that point. We get the pick. 6 minutes left. Like, to bring it to your point, like, just keep going. It's 6 minutes left. Just keep going. You have a convoy in front of you. Why are you telling them to slide? But anyway, that's not really besides the point. Why are you telling them to slide? Just run it in. I go from probably like happy Dave to like, I'm ready to just break my house down, man. Like, it's not good. And I have my dad, who's a Bears fan, who likes to kind of stick the dagger in and twist it a little bit in terms of like dark humor, is kind of just ribbing me nonstop, saying like, hey, thinking it's just a game, like, no worries, I'll give him some fun, and I'm just not having it. I just can't believe the turn of events that happened. And from what I've read, from what I've heard, and from what I've watched, the Bostic onside kick, I've heard a lot of players, a lot of coaching staff said that Bostic should not have been on that postseason roster. Like, they wanted him cut earlier in the year, even in training camp. Not to dig on the guy. I know it's so many years past, but I've just read articles. I've heard stuff that Ted really wanted to keep him. For like, the people know Ted's story. Ted was kind of a guy that was chipping and climbing up the ladder for a long time in his playing career. He was a player before he was a GM. And that's why he likes to keep undrafted rookies. That's why he likes the 7th and 6th round pick.
I.e. Desmond Bishop, 6th round.
Yeah. So like, it works out great for some players. Some players you just have to cut loose at a certain point, and Ted wanted to keep him around. And you look at that replay, and Jordy's right behind him, ready to basket catch and fall to the ground. And Bostic gets his big old mitts on it. And when that happened, you need to score, and then you need some other things to work out. And it just was, for a lot of the years that we were in contention, a lot of those bounces didn't go our way, and that bounce didn't go our way in a big time.
I forgive him.
Brandon
Bostic, we forgive you. What do they say?
There's no forgiveness.
12 different instances that we could have closed out that game.
Yes.
And
it's not on
going
him
to be the scapegoat for it.
I don't even scapegoat him. It's a key moment in the game. There is 157 other ways we could have won that game. It's put the ball in the end zone instead of kicking field goals. It's being more aggressive. It's don't run the ball 3 straight times and punt. It's don't slide down. It's a stop here. It's a get a third down.
It's having better wherewithal when you're on field goal on your field goal block unit. And not allowing a field goal for a touchdown or a 2-point conversion, or Russell Wilson's running all over the field. There's so many instances.
It's the Bartman ball of Cubs baseball. Bartman caught, in terms of Bartman stuck his mitt out over the fence, blocked Moises Alou from catching it, and the next play, Alexi Gonzalez botches an infield ground ball. Like, Bostic, yes, was, because it was so late in the game, it's a key play, but there was 59 minutes and 38 seconds of other stuff we could have done to close out that game. And I will leave it at that.
Dave, I got to, so we're not dwelling too much. So when you're almost breaking down your house, your dad's probably internally little bit elated, kind of happy. I don't know how that dynamic works being a Bears fan. What's Princess doing? What's Chris Schneider like during this 2014 NFC Championship game, watching Dave just come unglued?
It was the three little pigs versus the big wolf at my house, and I was the big wolf, all of probably 130 pounds, but I think I was pretty much blacked out in anger at that point, and I think Chris was just got up and was like, "I'm gonna leave."
I thought he's probably thinking 6 minutes ago, oh, we're going to be celebrating. I've never seen Dave happier in my life since I've known him. Outside of when we're around his wife Karen, this is going to be great. I'm happy for my brother, but what a turn of events! A series of unfortunate ones.
Yeah.
Have you went back and watched that game?
No, never will.
Same.
Never will. No. Since we started the show, I go back and I'll watch games, win or lose, for educational purposes of this show. But before we started the show, I would never go back and watch a loss. Like I record every game, and if we win, depending on the margin of it or how good it was, I'll rewatch it before I delete it on my recordings and record the next one. But if we lose, it's just a straight delete. That game is buried in the archives, like the Lost Covenant, Raiders of the Lost Ark style of. I could probably remember 80% of that game in my head, and when I sleep at night, there's sometimes pops up in a nightmare, but I will never ever go back and search that game.
Well, if somehow, some way, you're in a retirement home, senile, and I still have my wits about me, I'm going to show up and be like, all right, Dave, we're going to park your wheelchair over here and have you relive the day of 2014 NFC Championship game. I'm ready to go into 2015. I wanted to get a couple.
I've been waiting for 5 minutes going to 2015.
I had a couple games because I knew where we were going, and that's going to be a bit of a lull. I want to try to get the endorphins going as much as possible. Remember the Eagles, the Lions, everything else about that season.
There's a lot of good in this season. So
2015,
yes. So we're 10-6. Start out 6-0. Like, we're on fire. Like, this is another year, beginning the year, where I'm like, man, we picked up right where we left off. This is a year. This
2011.
Yeah. We're on fire. I'll let you pick it up from there.
Like when we first put this series together, and I'm going through like a rough outline of it, and I think I sent you it too, where it's got like 1 or 2 words next to each year. The first thing that stands out about 2015 is Jordy Nelson in preseason going down with that ACL injury. That was really when they started the serious conversation of whether to play starters in the preseason at all for the Packers. I'm sure that changed Rodgers' opinion, him never wanting to step foot in another preseason game. But I remember that and just how tough Jordy was, where he's like, I didn't think I tore my ACL. He's like, I was ready to get back out there if it was a regular season game. That happened. I got like an ESPN fantasy football learn about it. And I'm like, no, that's whatever. That's kind of jumping to conclusions. That's the first thing that stands out. And then thank the Lord, James Jones was on the Giants at the time, I want to say, trying to make their 53-man roster. Somehow it didn't. I don't know how James Jones doesn't make your 53. And then call him up the week of the Bears game, week 1. James Jones, grab yourself and your hoodie. You're coming back home to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Let's pick up where you left off and go off for like 2 or 3 tutties in week 1.
So a real thing, though. He didn't become Hoodie Jones until 16.
He wore the hoodie in 2015.
The hood until 6. I don't think so. I think he
All
started
right. Well, I
the
guess there's a little bit of a debate there, but I could probably fact check and go and find a late season game
But yes, I
Minnesota,
remember
Packers
that.
on the Rock. Yeah, at Minnesota when they're building their new stadium, he had a hoodie on in that game that I think that sealed the NFC North title for us. Anyways, I still have it down as
He
hoodie
had
bones.
like
I want to
12,
say there's quite a
he
few
had like
games.
12 touchdowns that year, right?
2012 he did, but all right, now we're getting too much into fact land. We're
Uh,
here for trip down memory
this is
lane.
not our forte.
I know
Not
I
about
called you.
facts.
I know I called you out for the 2014 tight end, 3 of them. But anywho's and Hausers.
Hoosier Hauser's nice. It sounds like, Fry on the Dry right there. All right, let's get back into Packerland. We went a little bit off the rails there.
That's how you can tell we're not nutty diehards.
So another big game. I don't know how deep into the season you want to go here, but where Hale Rogers first got his crowning, if you will, in Detroit, just almost hits the friggin' rooftop with it, and Richard Rodgers is just standing there with big old mitts and comes down with it. Interesting story on this one. So, with my fiance at the time at Navy Pier in Chicago, my father-in-law was an engineer there at the time, so he got us it's like Winterfest there, where you go there, they have free drinks for you, you're able to get in before they actually start. And I'm just glued to the TV at the bar, and my now wife is just like, come on, you gotta like mingle with my family, you gotta do all this stuff. And I'm like, no, this is too close of a game. Like, why do you ever take me out for Packer games? So start kind of doing some activities there. It gets to the fourth quarter. I'm like scrolling on ESPN.com, just updates. And finally it gets to like the last drive. And I'm like, I have to go back to the bar. And I literally get to the bar, like the play where there's a penalty on the play before the actual Hail Mary. And I'm like, oh, okay, we got another shot at it. And then he tosses one up to the heavens. Rodgers comes down with it, and we just party the rest of the night. I'm just greatest in the mood. Let's have many drinks and Uber back as you will. That's my Detroit Lions Hail Mary, Hail Rodgers story.
I don't know what it is, but announcers always have such a great play-by-play when these moments happen. They're like, what do they say? Rodgers turns something this week or tomorrow or yesterday. Does he have another vintage moment in him? And he said that's the highest point he's ever had on a football, that the way it came off and the way he set himself up. You even saw like last year that there's a couple times. I think that's where he broke his thumb. He was trying to set up to throw it deep, and then a player hit his thumb. But the arc on that ball, Richard Rodgers coming down with it. My memory is that the following day, the NIU Huskies played in the MAC championship in Detroit at Ford Field. I remember walking to the stadium. I'm like, it was just last night that Richard Rodgers was catching a Hail Mary to beat the Detroit Lions. And just a couple of quick side notes for this game. We were down 0-20 in it in the third quarter. We had to storm back in it. We had to manufacture so much offense going on in this season. And believe it or not, and this gets into people wanting to write off Davante Adams way too early. Week 13, the Richard Rodgers Hail Mary game. This is Davante Adams' first touchdown catch of the season. In 2015, with all those ankle injuries that he's dealing with,
he had a rough one.
and drops and everything else. Thank you, Ted Thompson, for not giving up on this cat too soon. Because he just like in 2014, he has glimpses. You can tell all the athleticism is there. But yeah, those are a couple things that stick out for that game. And the only other one really to mention this season is Aaron Rodgers, Michael Jordan type performance against the Kansas City Chiefs, Monday Night Football, 5 touchdowns. He has like a perfect passer rating. He only misses like 8 passes. Cobb goes off for 3 touchdowns. And the Chiefs snapped a 2-year streak of going without a wide receiver touchdown in that game since like Dwayne Bowe in 2013. So those are just a few of I only really have 2 regular season games that stand out in 2015.
Yeah, we have this was much like the last episode where we had kind of that 12 season that was kind of forgettable. Like 15 was kind of stuck in the pack of 14, you go NFC Championship game. 16, you have to run the table. And it was kind of like stuck between those years where a lot of Packer fans are kind of like, it gets lost in the shuffle.
Do you think that there's like, the 8 stages of grievances and long-term memory loss? Do you think it has something to do with like heartbreak? You think about it, 2012 is kind of one that lapses us in memory. 2015, these are coming back. These are coming off of like absolutely devastating years where maybe our long-term memory has a tough time recollecting what went on during those seasons. I bet there's some part of that with
you could go into psychology there, Jordan. Like,
I think that has to play part of it. Because just like, I mean, it's not just you and me. I'm sure there's many Packer fans that like, damn, I really got to go back and watch the highlights to see what happened in this season.
I would even say, and it's not even that far. Like 2020, I can live over and over again. 2021, I have a really hard time reliving.
Same, bro.
It's just kind of like one of those years where it's the heartache, it's the long run, it all blends together. Like it's just one of those things. Maybe it's because it's the year before is such a long year where it just kind of overlaps with the next year.
There's some sort of psychology to it, because I if we put a poll out there, I'm sure that a lot of fans would be in the same boat.
Let's do a case study on us. We'll just go into like there we go.
I'm gonna go survey in Green Bay when I move there. I'm gonna survey all 100,000 people knocking door to door. Excuse me, I just got one quick question for you. No, I'm kidding.
Do you remember 2015?
Yeah. Playoff time. Do you remember that wild card game? Kirk Cousins, you like that?
Of 15?
Of 15, yeah.
No, I don't remember the wild card game.
That one evades just a couple quick things, and then even touching upon the Cardinals game.
I don't remember the wild card game. I remember the Arizona game.
Okay. And this, like, when I go back through and watch all the highlights for, research and make sure that, we're on our P's and Q's for the show, this is one of the only games you can see our offense start to generate some serious momentum and Rodgers catching fire. Also, 2015 is one of the first years that Rodgers has really danced around in the pocket. He's buying time. He's going off schedule. And why Randall Cobb did so good is because he knew where Rodgers wanted him at all time. And when they had to sort of do whatever you could to get open. Jordan Reed, another tight end. I just brought up tight ends with Gronk. He ate us alive in this game, tore us up. We didn't have an answer for him. And then that brings us to that divisional Cards game and Larry Fitzgerald in overtime catching the ball. And then we got 4 people taking bad angles on him for tackles, and we don't even get the ball in the playoffs. One of the reasons they changed those rules. But what's your recollection for this car round and in the desert?
So in my notes I had, heartbreak in the desert part 2. It was there's something about Rodgers, like you brought up earlier, something with Rodgers and announcers. Like there's a lot of vintage moments, and there's part of it too where Packers were so good that they're on primetime a lot, but there's something about Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth calling a Aaron Rodgers game. Just like there was something about John Madden calling a Brett Favre game. Like it seems like Chris Collinsworth is so on Rodgers, like pro Rodgers, and Al Michaels just enjoys the show. Where there's a lot of that game that I don't recall, but obviously a lot of Packers fans, if you YouTube Rodgers clips, know what happened because of that final drive. The rollout left, Hail Mary, let's just catch it at the 40 to the Janis catch in the end zone where he just lost it up forever. And the reason they're so depleted is the receiver core is just decimated.
Yeah.
And then Randall Cobb goes down, and he blames it that they had him mic'd up.
Yes, I was wondering if I just heard
No,
about that through the
no.
grapevine.
They had
That
him
was
mic'd.
real.
They had him mic'd up. He had a battery pack on his back. He lands on his back trying to catch a football, and he just, I think he breaks his rib. It's not
Yep.
confirmed, but I think something seriously goes wrong with him, so he has to go out of the game. Rodgers literally has no one to throw to at the time, so basically any throw Hail Mary style is a good style.
He's got Jared Abbrederis, man. What are you talking about?
Those are probably the two greatest throws back to back I've ever seen in a football game.
I'd put the Jeff Janis catch over the Richard Rodgers.
I will.
How high he leapt into the air. His body's almost parallel with the ground, it seems like. And if you watch that catch in slow motion, I'm not even sure if he caught it because the ball does hit the ground after he hits the ground and it's kind of moving around.
So at this stage where we were with receivers, I had us mentally looking back at it. We're not quite there yet, but like, you know how 16 at the end of the run, Atlanta just buzzsaws us? And it's like, okay, that was kind of expected. We're just depleted. Arizona felt like that. The squad was just so depleted that we just couldn't stick up gun for gun. And even if you advanced, it wasn't going to materialize into anything.
Yeah.
It was just kind of one of those.
We were hanging by a fingernail.
Yeah. There's a couple of years where throughout kind of these years that we've been recapping that it just feels like we're just outgunned depth style, whether it's injuries or just teams we're stacked up against they could just come at us player after player, and we just have Rodgers and a couple of guys, not guys, but a couple of special players, and then the rest are just kind of there where the other guys actually have a layer of depth to them. We just kind of feel like the peaks of entry that's it. We reached our limit. And this was one of the years where Arizona just felt like we reached our limit.
And we never catch a break, too. Hardly ever. We're in the playoffs. We're facing the NFC representative in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But Dave, that moves. All right, then we got to kind of, pick up probably a little bit of the pace. We still got three seasons to go, 16 through 18. I can't speak for you, but I feel like I can, though, in this one. Dave, is your run the table year 2016 kind of like my 2014? I know from conversations, other episode, I want to say run the table has to be up there for one of your faves.
I'm rewatching 2016 Run the Table on my TV right now. I'm not even lying. 2016 it's easily a top 5, probably a top 3 year for me. In recent memory, I would probably go 2020, 2016, 2014. 2016, not that I thought we were going to win a Super Bowl. It was strictly out of entertainment purposes. That team
like watching a movie or watching some great series on Netflix.
Correct. And I went to multiple games that year, and I usually stick to one, but I went to 3 games that year, and it was fantastic. Just that, if they would have won the Super Bowl, it would have been a Disney movie. That's how good that script was. If the NFL is scripted, the Packers would have won that year.
That would have been the case in point. Stamp it. There's no other way. I remember I watched the Atlanta game, the buzzsaw, at one of my best friend's place, and after Mason kicked that field goal, I'm like, we're going to the Super Bowl. I was calling my shot, and he's like, no, there's no way you're beating Atlanta. Well, he was right. And like some of the first impressions of this season is Jordy Nelson comes back, picks up where we left off, comeback player of the year. Ty Montgomery switches to running back. Such a huge. You look at some of these windows and years that we were so successful. It's like our passing attack is there. We're just missing the run game to marry it up. And then we have a Ryan Grant or a James Starks or a Ty Montgomery come in like mid-season out of nowhere and then round us out where then the safeties are biting up. We're able to hit them over the top, and they really have to honor the run game.
So, real quick here, and I think it started. So we started off the season in Jacksonville. It's like 100 degrees. I think what's really important in this season is this is Devontae's breakout year. He starts out with Jacksonville touchdown, which is really impressive. Like Ramsey's
got a guy draped all over him.
And he just comes down with it. He gives the, double flex, point to the back, like I'm here. Ends up just short of 1,000 yards, but has double-digit touchdowns. That was a huge part of this year. And I think a lot of this year was Rodgers knew he had the talent on this team, but it just wasn't translating to actual results yet. I think he knew he had something. We're 4-6 in the tank. And it's like, man, this team's way better than this. Like me personally, not Rodgers, is thinking, man, I've never seen kind of this steep of a dive before with this team. I think we're way better than this. And then it just translated into win after win after win. The middle of the pack, I go to at Lambeau, that Seahawks game, right when it kicks off. And I've rewatched the game on TV because I want to know what the broadcast was. But me and Karen,
great broadcast. Another phenomenal call too. They always seem to hit it. Dave, there's a script. Fantastic. There's a script, man.
So I get into Karen gets a spiked hot chocolate. I grab a couple beers. We just sit down. I'm usually in my seats way earlier, but we just get in. Kickoff happens like 10 seconds later. And then they hit Adams. And it's just, okay, off and running. Throws the ball back. It literally hits the guy in the face mask. And Joe Buck has a great call on that because I'm watching it. I had to rewatch it. I recorded it. And Joe Buck says, welcome to week is it what? Week
16?
16?
Yeah, 16. Well, hold on.
No, it's 14. Welcome to week 14.
15.
Yeah, it's week 14. That's such a great call. It's such a great call.
Dave, you got to see Russell Wilson throw not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 Oskies on the day.
Funny story. It's a blizzard. It's like 10 degrees. And we found out like 2 weeks prior that Karen's pregnant with Bella. And she's just sitting through it and just being an absolute champion. And we saw Janice end around for a touchdown. The whole game was glorious. Like Green Bay, Lambeau Field in a winter wonderland against the Seahawks is phenomenal. Especially
that was kind of like our 22 game against the Vikings, where anything that could go right did.
Yes, it was an absolute pleasure to be a part of that game.
Dave, what was it like watching the whole entire fourth quarter with Brett Hundley in at quarterback because we were up by 4 scores?
There's a lot of beer involved.
So all right, so let me get the timeline straight. 2 weeks before that, you find out that you're going to have your first kid in 9 months. Phenomenal news. Go to the game, witness. All right, then this is what, our third straight win? Yes, third straight win. And you're like, we're riding such a high, babe. Let's go to the following week too. I don't know what the temperatures are going to look like, but they're saying it could be one of the coldest games in NFL history. I know you might be pregnant, but bundle up. Or did you do this one solo at the Bears game? Because I was also at that game, sitting way up in the upper bowl, and thank God for the sun, because when it went over in the fourth quarter, that's when it really hit me, and I didn't have pizza boxes sitting underneath me like you.
So, okay, there's no pizza boxes on that game. That was when I was like 10 years old. But anyway,
I thought you carried that through, or it's sort of like the Dave trick. You got people in your row. They're like, dude's got a pizza box underneath him, and I should try it out.
So my birthday lands on the first week of December. So the Seahawks game prior was a birthday gift, and the Bears game after was a birthday gift. The game after, so the Bears game in Bears Packers in Chicago, where it's like the third coldest on record. I had 4 tickets to. She eventually bowed out. My brother-in-law went, Chris went, and Blake went, all brothers from the fraternity house. That game was also great. That was the Montgomery game where he was just on like a will drive where I'm going to break tackles. I'm going to spin out of everything. I'm going to carry 5 guys with me. And then to cap it all off, the deep throw to Jordy to end on a Mason Crosby field goal where I'm sure his foot felt like a cinder block brick. But no, we kept her out of that one. She watched it from the comforts of her own home.
And she probably felt a little bit of FOMO, but I kid you not, it took 3 hours after that game for my toes to thaw out and for me to start feeling them. And we got there a little bit late because we didn't realize that Soldier Field, you can't park next to the stadium like at Lambeau.
Yeah.
Park like a mile away. We rush, get into the stadium. And then right as soon as I look into Soldier, I see Ty Montgomery, or it was Jared Cook catching the ball. It was one of the two. And I'm like, all right, looks like a good start. And then I remember going to halftime to go get a hot chocolate or something to eat. And those long lines at Soldier Field, just like Lambeau, but Lambeau's gotten better because we have a lot more food stands there now. But right as soon as I was coming back into the third quarter, I look out because I can kind of picture the way Soldier Field is set up. You look out there, and then here's Julius Peppers flying around the end and then doing one of his patented, I'm going to knock the ball out before you can even cock it too far back. I'm going to knock the ball out and be so athletic that I can then be right in the right position over the ball is going to bounce to cover up the ball, get the hat trick, and that led to points for us. So those are like 2 of the things that stood out. And then here's a name dropper, Christian Michael from the Seahawks.
I was going to name drop him.
Dang it. He had a touchdown in that game. And I know I brought this up to you many times. Dave, I think this is one of the last times that Rodgers connects with Jordy Nelson on that deep corner post. Like, you'd really have to go back and dissect the highlights, but this is one of the
I don't think that was a corner post. I think it was just a straight post.
Just but that long of a post. It could have been a double move, but either way, that's one of the last long balls that him and Rodgers connected on that we got to witness. And Rodgers was even telling I have it in my notes here. He was telling Lane Taylor to get off the field. So they go down there and go down there and spike it with time running off the clock, and he's able to get it within like 3 seconds for Mason to come on and cinder block Legis way through the football.
Yeah, that was I remember everyone like sprinting down there, and Rodgers just like so adamantly just being like spike, like but that was that was, besides being probably riddled with frostbite for the rest of my life, that was a good game.
He's got like the movie Mr. Deeds. The dude's like, I like feet, and he's got like a black foot on him.
I actually went from that game to the United Center to watch a Blackhawks game on the glass. Karen joined us for that one. So that
what a great 2 weeks.
I know, man. I went Packer game, Blackhawk game. Like, I literally pre-gamed the Blackhawk game with the Packer game.
All right, so what was the best out of those 3? If you say Blackhawks game, I swear.
No, it's not. It's definitely the Seahawks at Lambeau. There's nothing. It was a winter wonderland at Lambeau. You can't beat that. That's my favorite place to be. If it snows at Lambeau, I want to be there.
Ditto. And that brings us to the wild card game against the Giants. And sort of we're evening the tide with how the last couple playoff games have been. And
that was the famous hope party game where everyone on the Giants was dropping passes and everyone was having the time of their life. They're coming out there shirtless for warm-ups, and oh boy.
Odell Beckham, which I'll go on record saying I think he's a bit overrated. He had like 3 or 4 drops in this game.
Yes. Yeah, everyone did. I mean, him, Cruz, I mean, they were stacked at wide receiver, and no one had a good game. Eli didn't have a good game. That was a very fun game to watch in terms of the announcers just digging on them every second they made a mistake.
Where they'd replay it like 3 or 4 times because it's Odell Beckham and how much that they were elated with him, and like the John Madden Brett Favre relationship, Odell could do no harm. And this offense was flat during the wild card game up until the second quarter when Rodgers hit Devontae Adams along the sidelines, one that would become such a signature play for them as the years go on. But we struggled up until he hit them. And then, as you know, to close out the half, Rodgers, where a lot of quarterbacks don't even get one Hail Mary in their lifetime, this is Rodgers' third to hit Cobb in the end zone. And between me, you, and the fence post, I think Cobb slightly pushed off a little bit on this Hail Mary. Sorry, Cobb.
Yeah, I mean, hey, all's, if you're in the scrum, you can do whatever you want as long as you don't get caught, right? Say what you want about Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Like, we Packer fans have had him enough. Some people call him a Packer hater. I actually think they side more with the Packers than they don't. I think they call a lot of vintage Rodgers moments. His call on that one is good because it's like Cobb, unbelievable. Like there's like a voice crack in unbelievable. Like Cobb just standing there with the little football flick of the wrist toss.
LT.
That's another fantastic call.
I think you know how I feel about Joe Buck and Troy Aikman and why I mute the TV during most games.
There's a hard split. Some people like.
I know. I'm more in the side of that. I want is biased towards the Packers and pro Packers always.
You're not gonna get that. All right, we're gonna just
Larry McCarron, Wayne Larrivee. Oh yeah, that's every time.
He's paid by the Packers. We're not getting.
I know.
Into this now.
I know. That's playing right to my liking, and
that's fine.
As we know, they're two of the best in the whole entire NFL with radio broadcast.
Moving on.
Anything about the Cowboys game? And
I have lots on the Cowboys game, but I know it needs to be quick. So, Cowboys game, to sum it all up, we were in the lead, fell out of the lead, got way closer than it needed to be, as always, in a typical, Mike McCarthy era of foot on the gas. Oh, we're up big. I'm going to hit the brakes a little bit. Oh, I should probably press the gas pedal a little bit more. I'll put this at Rodgers' top 3 throws of all time.
There we go. You know I was going to ask you that question.
The Jared Cook sideline catch is top 3 by far. With him throwing, and he has the awareness and he gets on his toes. Rodgers, after he throws the pass, gets on his toes like a little ballerina of telling Jared Cook can't see 40 yards away, but I mean, Rodgers is like, please do it for me. And it gets ruled incomplete. Then they overturn it to not even on replay. They overturn it. The officials get together. They call it a catch. You get the little ass slap from one of the refs to the other ref saying, hey, good call. I saw that. They review it. It's a catch. And then you have Mason Crosby just put it through the uprights from 56. And there's nothing better than being the Cowboys in Jerry world.
Want to know an interesting part about that play that I thought about after I watched it? And I'm like, all right, what's a good takeoff of this? Rodgers mentions in pressers and even later years that this is a play with Jared Cook that, like he's done so many times in 2-minute drills, he just draws it up in the dirt. He's like, all right, Jared Cook, you're going to, do a little bit of a drag route here, kind of go towards the sidelines, get over about, 10 yards out of Crosby distance, and we'll be able to get one more play. My take is that this is a play he drew up in the dirt, along with so many times that Aaron Rodgers brings us down the field, even in the Cowboys, which we'll talk about in a couple seasons, that we only have 1:13 left on. That's more than enough time for Rodgers. He's so great at the 2-minute drill that sometimes I wonder that's what led to all of the controversy with Matt LaFleur and Mike McCarthy in 2018. Rodgers defying plays, and there's 2 plays, and he's always going to go with his own, or he doesn't always quite like what's being called by the head coach, and that's when he starts to defy. I mean, I can see why he does it. When you're so successful in 2 minutes and you're able to drive you down the field, case in point, like, does that lead you to kind of wanting to go astray and do your own thing on offense, like how Peyton Manning called all of his own plays.
Yeah. I think that year, I mean, if you don't mind me bunching them up, like 16, 17, 18, I think you start to see the cracks, right? Of like, especially like 14. 14, they're good. Like, I think after 14 really damaged Rodgers' relationship maybe with the coaching staff and the front office of this isn't quite, we have different viewpoints of how we see game management, how I want to play, conservative versus aggressiveness. I think this is when you really start to see the cracks in like 16 of Mike's play calling versus what Rodgers wants to do. I hear what you're calling in the headset. I'm not seeing this on the field, or like kind of just like a screw you. I'm going to run what I want to run because I know I'm good at what I do. And that translates to 17. For sure. 17, he has the collarbone and stuff like that. And then definitely 18 is just if you're going to call something and I don't like it and I have to show you like how much I don't like it, I'm going to roll to the right and throw this as far up into the seating as I can.
I'm going to have 20 throwaways a game. And also he's wanting to protect his stats to have low interceptions.
Yeah.
I just try to put myself in his shoes from time to time. And it's like the conditioning of how great you are, unscheduled plays, scrambling around the pocket, making something out of nothing, that you think that you can do it all the time and not have to play within the offense. I jotted down that it's right around like 15 when he has his legs back, that instead of like three-step drops, get out of the ball, get rid of the ball quickly on like a slant play or a post route to Jennings or Jordy's. This is when he's buying all sorts of time. And it's like a double-edged sword. Sometimes it can go good. Sometimes it can go bad. And then the collarbone 2.0 against Anthony Barr. It's another play that he's scrambling outside of the pocket. And here comes Anthony Barr bringing him down. And then in 2018, you start to think that he's made out of glass and he's frail, because that would have been 3 out of 6 seasons that Rodgers is going down with a potential season-ending injury.
The funny thing about I know I don't know how you kind of want to do this, but the funny thing about like 18 is, every once in a while they show like Rodgers how much he has for the snap, like post snap, and he like dances around and he evades linemen and linebackers, and it's like 7.5 seconds and he throws a touchdown dart. There's times in 18 they run that clock and it's like 6.5, 7 seconds, 8 seconds, and then he just launches it out of bounds.
It's a double-edged sword like no other. It can help you, but it can burn you so many times. Dave, I at least have to touch upon I know we'll wrap this thing up. We've been on for almost 2 hours now, and I can hear speaking of dancing, I can hear some dancing going on.
There's a lot of footsteps. We're practicing our ballet at the Grosick House right now.
I did see a ballet recital pic. It looked like on Facebook earlier this week or last week. Dave, you have to. We talked. One sort of theme of this show has been announcers and how they've been at the right spot at the right time with the right call, and we're always trying to find our footing with probably calls and play-by-plays and this and that. Dave, that Bengals game has to stick out with Tony Romo coming into his own as one of the best color commentators in the sport. An overtime victory against the Bengals. Tony Romo's call as Gmo, I'll call it since I'm a couple glasses in. Geronimo Allison catches that, shot play between the safety and the cornerback, cover 2, and Tony Romo's call of that play is I think is a part of what made him one of the best color commentators and why he was one of the earliest commentators to be announcing the Super Bowl. But that is one of the games from 2017 before that collarbone injury, and Josh Jones showing flashes with 2 sacks on the day and 10 tackles. And I was fully bought in. I thought Josh Jones was a player. You put him up near the line of scrimmage,
Yeah.
get him heading north. I'm like, oh my gosh, you play him like a third inside linebacker, and who knows what this guy can do.
Yeah, he would have been like what they call now the star position. He would have probably really thrived in that. There's a touchdown in that game. Rodgers rolls right. It's a quick out. Fitzpatrick is the cornerback. He's all over the route. Is it Jordy? I think it's Jordy. But Rodgers zips it in there. Like
threads the needle. That's the game tying score.
Throws it as hard as he can into the tightest window one of the tightest ones I've seen. And Romo goes ballistic over it. Of like, I've never seen a quarterback do that. He's, put him in the Hall of Fame right now and let him play. Romo is good. Nance is good. I always enjoy the CBS crew joining us.
It's my favorite.
That is my favorite.
Until they water down Romo. Now Romo's changed. They got him so buttoned up. And you're right. He gushes over Rodgers in that Gmo play. He's like, there's only 2 quarterbacks on the face of this earth that could have made that throw at this time. And Aaron Rodgers is one of them. That's my Tony Romo impression.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's a good Romo voice.
Thank you. With my voice half gone. Dave, you have to remember the 1:13 on the clock, Cowboys game. Devontae Adams says, hey, go back to it. I got this.
I
Throw it again.
I remember that.
And I remember Aaron Rodgers on that drive, another one of those where you go back, there's 15 of them. But Aaron Rodgers has this scramble. He rolls left. He picks up his feet, barely escapes the Cowboys defender's arms, pick up the first down, and he's absolutely elated on the sideline, knowing. And when you see Rodgers show emotion like that, it's over for the defense. Like when he catches fire like that, and he's into the game and showing positive body language, like you might as well just cash it in because it's game over. And Devontae Adams, he missed him the first time, but Tate comes back to the huddle. He's like, hey, go right back to it. I got it this time. Throw a little bit of a better ball. And sure enough, he does. And Cowboys fans were cheering with 1:13 on the clock. There's this Packer fan who holds up his phone, takes a selfie, and he's like, little do they know we have Aaron Rodgers.
To kind of recap this before we kind of head off. 17 and 18 are kind of a wash, right? You would agree with that? 18, we're going over the Rodgers, kind of let's just launch it. Let's get out of here. I'm not happy with anything that's going on. So 18 before the year starts is when Goot's first year as GM starts. So
can I bring up one last thing just for YouTube clip purposes?
Go ahead, man.
For 2017, the game I went to, actually it was 2 of them. I'll be real quick with this one, Dave, and we'll get this thing.
Fine, man.
We'll land this plane in 10 minutes. First game I went to was the Ravens at home. Brett Hundley at quarterback. Lay a goose egg in this game. Barely get into Ravens territory. The plus side for this, though, and I could potentially see this happening this year, or maybe a few years down the road, is that I paid $75 for this ticket, Dave, and I had the best seats I've ever had at Lambeau Field. We turned the ball over a bunch. There was a lot of miscues on offense, but $75 for 45-yard line, 20 rows back. It was amazing. And then the other one is, and this sort of shows previews for what Packer fans are like and why we're so effing spoiled. I went to the Bucs game too, not too long after that, with 2 of my best friends from Holmes, because one of them's a Tampa Bay Bucs fan, the other one's a Rams fan, and we like to get together, go to games when we can. I remember the Boo Birds coming out in this Tampa Bay overtime victory, and Greg Jennings announcing his first game, which I thought he did all right with. And he's like, I really love this kid. But the Boo Birds came out. I remember vividly in the fourth quarter and overtime, we were struggling mightily in offense to the point where it's like we have to have quarterback design runs to pick up any sort of yardage and first downs that Lambeau was so on edge that they didn't know whether to boo or whether to cheer at this time. Jamal Williams gets the start, plays all game long. Aaron Jones is in for one play that game. And that one play, he goes off for a 20-yard touchdown. and the overtime thriller to go ahead and win it. And Dean Lowry had a touchdown after Jameis Winston has one of his Brett Favre-like turnovers where nobody's open. And he's just trying to get rid of the ball. But I bring that up just to say that I'm pretty optimistic for this season, and I think we're going to surprise some people. But lo and behold, Packer Nation and Packers on the Rocks fans, we're going to have some games where you could feel like you're on the fence of whether to boo or whether to cheer. And that's what it reminded me of when I went back and watched those highlights and when I was there that day.
That was a good reminder.
Yeah, I'm ready for 2018 and to put a bow on this amazing episode.
So Goot comes in. It's the end of Ted Thompson. He was kind of suffering a little bit health-wise at this time. And so Goot takes over, and I think with a new GM, a lot of players, coaching staff, everyone's a little bit on edge just because new head boss, they're going to want to put their footprint, their fingerprints all over it. So this was the year that Rodgers and McCarthy really came head to head, where we don't have the personnel to do what you want to do. You want to go 5 wide, 1-on-1. I have no one to throw it to. You have no scheme. I'm going to launch it into the stands, show my displeasure. This is kind of where the Rodgers narrative of he makes faces a lot came to fruition of I'm going to make faces at the receivers for running the wrong route. I'm going to make faces at the coaching staff saying I'm displeasure with your play call. It was pretty much the height pettiness of Aaron Rodgers. And ownership, management was like, okay, what's easier to replace, a Hall of Fame quarterback or a head coach that won a Super Bowl? And unfortunately for Mike McCarthy, they chose, to go with franchise quarterback. I mean, it's not unfortunate for the Green Bay fan base. We got a lot more memorable moments out of Aaron Rodgers than we probably would have gotten out of Mike McCarthy. I was actually at the Arizona game where it's in the snow again. There's all this stuff going on. We lose to a last-second field goal. I'm dead tired because it's a 3:15 game. We're driving home. It's Lambeau. It's a 5-hour drive back home. Turn on the radio. And that's where we hear the Mike McCarthy got fired news on the radio on the way back from Green Bay after the field goal kick.
I think Gutekunst has done a lot of right things throughout his tenure with Green Bay. He's still a little bit of a distance from Ted Thompson as far as accomplishments and where he needs to be. Obviously, a Super Bowl victory to cement his legacy, but I think he's done a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
The one thing starting off as a GM, and I get it, you're in a very precarious position, is not letting Mike McCarthy finish out that 2018 season. I felt so bad for him. It was December 2nd of 2018. The day stands out because my boss got fired, ironically enough, the very next day, and I got a call at like 6 a.m. that day, and I'm like, you're messing with me, right? Because of the Packers game. No, he was dead honest. And there's a whole lot besides that. But I remember Gutekunst and Mark Murphy saying we did it because we shouldn't, we felt like time had run its course. We shouldn't have been beaten by the Arizona Cardinals with Josh Rosen at quarterback. They were 2-9. Maybe if Mason Crosby makes that kick at the end of regulation, Mike holds on to his job for the end of the season. Going back and watch those highlights, it's really tough to watch. You can tell this is a team that's without a ton of spirit, that the wheels have fallen off. There's a lot of controversy between what's going on with Aaron and the head coach, and then you bring in Joe Philbin for the next day, and it's like Aaron Rodgers is rejuvenated. We knocked the doors off the Falcons. Bashaud Breeland has a pick 6 against the Falcons in this game. I also think that Jair Alexander played really well against Julio Jones. I remember the game starting off with two challenges by Joe Philbin. It was kind of wonky to begin with, but we settled in. It was a lot of flashes of Aaron Jones, a nice touchdown run that he had. And then this shows how much time has passed, Dave. Devondre Campbell, now our starting inside linebacker, all pro. He had 2 sacks against Aaron Rodgers in this game with Joe Philbin as the interim head coach. Talk about how much distance between 2018 to now and what's transpired. But yeah, and I remember they maybe should have let. I think Mike deserved to finish out the season.
He should have.
He had a request to come back into the locker room, which I'm so glad they granted him to address his team. And I'm sure it was really emotional with how much that he shows a Pittsburgh attitude and he's tough on the surface, but he's a teddy bear, like Aaron mentions. But yeah, I'm really glad they at least let him sort of close the loop and talk to his team for a final time.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a statement to the team, unfortunately, for Mike, of like, hey, like, we're the Green Bay Packers. We're not gonna let, these results aren't who we are. So if there's if we don't kind of find that whatever's happening is transpiring to how we want it, we're going to just let the responsible parties go mentality. But that team wasn't going to amount to anything. I mean, we finished 6-9-1 that year. So just let Mike was a Super Bowl coach. Mike led you to playoff game after playoff game. His record stands for itself. He's arguably on the line for a Hall of Fame coaching career or not. Maybe if he wins one with another team, he's shoe in. You let that guy finish out his career. Especially if you know that Joe Philbin is gonna be the next head coach of the Green Bay Packers, you let Mike finish it out.
Yeah, he's got to sign everything.
And then after the year, you say, "Hey, thanks, Mike. We're gonna look for new representation the next year. Like, feel free to address the players, address the staff before, they all head out of town. Like, thank you so much. We need to go into a younger, more innovative, more creative route." But to do it that late in the year when you know you're not making the playoffs, and even if you do spark a run and make the playoffs, that team's not getting past the wild card round or even to the Super Bowl. So why do that?
I think Mike has his closure, though, not only addressing the team, but also Rodgers talked about that one of his favorite moments from the 22 season is the hour that he spent with Mike McCarthy and Lambeau and kind of doing what we're doing right now, having a 20-year barrel-aged series. I hope they weren't putting down too much bourbon like we have today and a couple four-finger pours, but I think that was a really good closure moment, and him embracing Rodgers and Bakhtiari and Jordy Nelson showed up. He took some time off the farm to go to that Cowboys game, and Randall Cobb hugging Mike McCarthy. But I feel like we're kind of on a down note now, and that's been a long 2 hours. Dave, we just had Desmond Bishop on the fucking show, dude.
I'm impressed with kind of the trajectory we've taken. Like I said, I can't thank Desmond Bishop enough for joining us and contacting us and supporting the content and being willing to come on the show and share some of the stories. And hopefully we have him on as a guest appearance for shows to come. I am about to kind of head out and join the dance party that is happening outside my study office right now. Phenomenal show, buddy. I can't wait to have Des on again. I can't wait to have more future past Packers and hopefully present Packers on this show again, man. This is just kind of one more step in the journey, man.
A stepping stone on the bigger and better things. Hey, we know that while Desmond Bishop is a favorite for us, I know that you're a favorite for Bella, so we'll let you get to daddy time, but talk about a hell of a part 3 of Packers on the Rocks Barrel Age series and a way to kick off the 4th of July weekend.
Yes, sir, man. All right. Be safe for the weekend. Enjoy the weekend. Celebrate the weekend. I will talk soon to you, buddy, and I will talk soon to the rest of Packer Nation.
Absolutely.